Hello and welcome to an online presentation of the new fare policy draft for the Des Moines Area Regional Transit Authority. My name is Gunnar Olson. I am the Public Affairs Manager, and I would like to thank you for taking the time to view this presentation. The purpose of this presentation is to provide you background on DART's project to replace the fare boxes on its buses and introduce a new smart card fare payment system in Greater Des Moines in late 2015 or early 2016. More specifically, it is to give you an update on the new fare policy that has been drafted in preparation for the new fare payment system. This policy is being developed now because it will be used as the guide to develop the new fare payment system. Before the policy is finalized and adopted by DART's governing body, the DART Commission, we are checking in with you, the public, again to make sure we are headed in the right direction. This presentation will be told in six parts. I'm going to give you some background on the project itself, provide you an overview of the new fare policy draft. This should be familiar to anyone who was at the public meetings held in November 2013. I will also give you a summary of the public reaction to the concept as presented to the public in 2013. I will go over the results of a Title VI analysis of the proposed policy. I'll also give you the findings of a ridership and revenue analysis that was conducted of this policy as well. And then we'll close out by talking about next steps. So first, we'll talk about the project background. DART will be installing a new fare payment system on buses in late 2015 or early 2016. The fare boxes that are on the buses now, which are essentially the cash registers through which all transactions are made, are more than 25 years old and no longer supported by the manufacturer. So we are fortunate to get a grant to replace those, and we are looking to do so here in the next 12 to 18 months. This is essentially a large technology upgrade for us that's going to expand the options for collecting fares, including the addition of what are known as smart cards. I want to note early and emphatically that we are not talking about raising the price of fares. There's one small caveat to that, but by and large, we are not planning to raise the price of fares. What is a smart card? A smart card is not like the magnetic stripe passes that we have today. It would feel more like a credit card, more rigid, something that you could keep in your wallet. And it allows you to do, it is much more of a flexible tool. It allows you to store passes or past products on the card. It also allows you to store cash value on an account that is associated with the account. So the passes would work like today's passes, with unlimited uses within a certain time frame, and then the cash value is there and to be used like cash or tokens are today. It's just there for use whenever you need it, and it doesn't expire. So the card is read by a proximity reader on the bus, so that you would have this card in your hand or in your wallet as you enter the bus. You could just reach or wave the card near the proximity reader and the transaction would occur. It is a much faster transaction than what we have on the bus today. The goals of the new system are to encourage uses that speed up travel and cost less to maintain, such as smart cards and employee IDs, and to reduce the use of fare payment options that slow down service and are costlier to produce, such as cash, tokens, and paper transfers. I want to note here that we will continue to accept cash. Next, I'd like to move on to the new fare policy draft. As a recap of the media types that we collect today, we have first the magnetic stripe bus pass, which you're familiar with. You also have weekly passes, and we have employee IDs. These are people from employers that are part of the Unlimited Access program. Many of the major employers in the metro are part of this program, and they just show their ID to the operator, and the operator keys in that they're from a certain company, and then the person is allowed on board. The other way we collect is through tokens. These are coin-like tokens that we sell, and then they are good at any time aboard the bus. And then we also accept cash. The recommended fare policy has 4 similar types of products that would be accepted. The first is the smart card that I've mentioned. The second is we will continue to accept employee IDs, though these will likely be not something that are, this will likely, the IDs will actually be read by the fare boxes, so there would be an active transaction between the IDs and the bus. We would also have limited use smart cards, and these would take the place of tokens. And finally, we will continue to accept cash. So I'm going to spend a little bit more time talking about each of these products. The first is a smart card. So as I mentioned, the smart card allows you to store cash value on it. So the currency is stored in an account associated with the card. And if you were to register that account, you would be able to recoup any currency you had on that account in the event that you were to have a card lost or stolen. There's no expiration of the cash value on the account. The card would expire after 5 years, but you'd be able to transfer the value of that card onto a new card. So there's no expiration on the cash value with your account. The smart card would allow for free transfers if you're transferring between routes. And there's also a new feature with the cash value called bonus trips, which I'll touch on in a little bit more detail shortly. So the other thing that you can store on the smart card, and you can do both at the same time, are pass products, similar to the passes that you know today. So the first is a 30-day pass with unlimited uses. We also have a 7-day pass with unlimited day uses. So these are similar to what we have today as monthly passes and weekly passes. We would add a day pass with unlimited use. And it's important to note that these are rolling periods that begin on the first use. So let me talk a little bit more about the bonus trips. So let's say you've loaded cash value on your card. The system is smart enough that it will track how many payments you've made from your purse on your smart card, and so that it can tell if you've paid full fare 10 times, and on the 11th trip, it will give you a free ride. And so that's one of the things that we're proposing to implement as a way to encourage people to put their cash on a card instead of just paying cash at the fare box. So the other thing that I want to emphasize is that these are the 30-day pass, the 7-day pass, and the day pass are rolling period products that start on the first use. And this is a departure from the current fare policy. So for example, let's talk about a monthly pass. Today, a lot of people will buy their bus pass a day or two before the start of a month, and the pass will become active on the first day of the month, regardless of where that day lands or whether you intend to ride that day. And it is active through the end of the month and becomes inactive on the first of the following month. The new fare policy that we're proposing would replace the monthly pass with the rolling period pass, such that you could buy the pass, say in this example on the 17th, and start using it on the 19th. It doesn't activate until you use it the first time. You could actually sit on it for 2 months and not use it during that time, and it would only become active on the first use. And then, because it's a rolling period pass, it would be good for the next 30 days, and then on the 31st day, it would expire. So the new fare policy, under the new fare policy, we will continue to accept employee ID smart cards. We would design specific solutions for the different unlimited access companies that we have. We would attempt to use existing employee IDs so that those employees aren't having to have multiple badges, but just one employee badge. There's a couple of different ways where we do that. One is to have the chip that is already on the employee ID speak directly to the proximity reader in the bus. And the other way is to potentially put a sticker with its own chip on it on top of that ID so that the sticker with the chip is communicating with the proximity reader. Limited use smart cards act in many ways like a smart card, but have some limitations. So these come pre-programmed. There's no reloading of them, and they're meant to be disposable. And so the types of uses for these would be a single-use pass. We heard from a lot of social service agencies when we talked to them that it was really important to have a replacement for a token, for example. So one card that is good for one ride with free transfer. We can also distribute limited use day passes. So you can have a card that you can use at any time and it's good for one day. We can also do things like weekly passes. So again, the token is being replaced under the new fare policy by a single-use smart card meant for single trips, no expiration, and includes free transfers. Cash, we'd continue to accept cash in all vehicles, in bills and coins. However, as it is now, there would be no change made on board the bus. Now, this is important to note. The new policy says that there would be no paper transfers. That would mean for a cash-paying rider that if they were transferring from one route to another, they would have to pay the full fare on boarding each bus. So this is the caveat that I mentioned earlier. So in this one instance, it would cost more to ride the bus. However, it's important to note that the same cash could be loaded onto a smart card, and on the smart card, you would get that free transfer, and in addition, you would accumulate bonus trips, so you would actually get a discount by doing so. And you wouldn't have to load a whole bunch of money all at once. You could just load a little bit at a time if you needed to do that. This is an example or a comparison of cash versus a limited use smart card and what it would cost you at the end of one day. So in this example, we have the rider leaving in the morning at 7 a.m. making a trip. So on the cash side, they're paying $1.75. For the day pass, they've spent $4 to have this day pass. Day passes are available at pass sales outlets. You would not be able to buy them on board the bus. So then in this example, we have someone taking a trip over the noon hour and then going home in the evening. So the person paying in cash has spent $7 at the end of the day, whereas the person with the day pass has spent $4 at the end of the day. This next comparison is between cash and a smart card. So similarly, the cash paying customer, so in this example, the cash paying customer is transferring from one route to another in the morning. And so they're having to pay twice, and then again in the afternoon. So that at the end of the day, you have spent $7 on your trip. If you have that same money on a smart card, you get the free transfer, and so you're paying $1.75 when you're boarding in the morning and $1.75 on your trip in the evening, so you've spent $3.50 at the end of the day. And you can see the savings really add up over a 5-day total by having that value on a smart card. Now, this example uses cash value on a smart card. You could also have a pass product on that same smart card. Another important change in the fare policy is the discontinuation of the loop zone. This is a little known and seldom used distance-based fare where you can get discounted rides within the downtown core of Des Moines. The boundaries are south of I-235 to Cherry Street and Court Avenue, including Dart Central Station, and east of 15th Street on the west to East 14th Street on the east. And any bus in that zone can be ridden for 75 cents as opposed to $1.75. Now it's important to note that trips must begin and end within the zone. As you can imagine, that is hard to enforce because our buses aren't equipped with distance-based fares, so it's just up to the operators to enforce. So it's difficult to enforce. There is no Title VI impact to discontinue this, which I'll come back to in a little bit. And it's also important to note that fares remain free for the Link and D-Line downtown shuttle throughout downtown. So the whole downtown core is covered with a cheaper alternative already, and that will continue. So DART has many programs, and the policy maintains these existing programs, such as the unlimited access, opportunities through transit, employer programs, and reduced fare programs. And the point that I want to make here is that these programs are being maintained in the policy. So the only thing that would change is the media that is used to deliver these programs. So for example, reduced fare program participants today have an ID with which they can buy a bus pass. In the future, they would be able to have one piece. So their ID would also be a smart card, so that their pass would be stored on their smart card, which is also their ID. So to reiterate, the program intent remains the same, and the only changes would be to how those are delivered. In these final two slides, I have a comparison of the current fare policy and the recommended fare policy. The magnetic stripe cards, weekly, monthly express, and half fare are being replaced with smart cards. These include past products as well as stored value on those smart cards. The employee ID badges, the programs are going to remain the same, but we're looking to use the employee IDs as a smart card. The current fare policy has tokens as single use with free transfers. We're looking to replace that with limited use smart cards. So this includes single use cards with free transfer, as well as day passes with unlimited use for the day. And to reiterate, these are disposable. Cash and coin. The current policy is that they're accepted on all vehicles and they're free paper transfers, and in the new policy they would continue to be accepted on all vehicles, but there would be no free transfers, which would mean payment would be required on each boarding. And one last time, the downtown loop zone that exists today would be discontinued under the new fare policy. So in summary, the recommended new fare policy in many ways mirrors the existing policy. It meets the goal of encouraging faster payment options and reducing slower payment options. It also helps reduce fraud and operator disputes. And it gives new options to riders. So in the next section, I'm going to talk about some of the reaction that we've got from the public. In November of 2013, 1 year ago, we held 11 public meetings throughout the metro area. We had 47 attendees. We also held a survey. These were conducted online, collected at meetings, and also at Dart Central Station. All in all, we collected 364 surveys. And the conclusions from those surveys were that overall, the smart card system was well received. The answers were consistent among subgroups, so the answers were the same for people of different ethnicities, income levels, and users of different fare types. One thing that we heard is that additional options were welcomed, such as the day pass, 7-day pass, 30-day pass, and bonus trips. One of the other conclusions that we heard is that discontinuing the free transfers with cash fares would be upsetting but understood. We heard a lot of people say that change is tough but necessary. So that's what we heard from the public when we presented this a year ago. There are suitable alternatives to tokens. This is another of the takeaways that we heard. A lot of people were okay with cash on the card or day passes. There was some concerns about access to smart cards. On that note, it's important to say that smart cards would be available at any location where you are able to get passes today. And one last note on that. On this web page, on the DART website, in the project page, we have a link to the complete fare policy, and that fare policy includes a complete listing of all of our pass sales outlets. And one other note on the tokens is that we recognized there was a need for a single-use alternative when we initially took this to the public a year ago in 2013. We did not have this single-use pass. That is something that we added because we recognized that we needed a one-on-one or apples-to-apples replacement to the token. We also received many perceptive questions about how this new system would work, and so it just lets us know that we're going to have to do a really good job doing a public education campaign to get everyone prepared for these changes. In this next section, I'm going to talk about a Title VI analysis that was conducted. So the purpose of a Title VI analysis on the new fare policy draft is to ensure that DART is in compliance with the U.S. DOT's Title VI regulations under the Civil Rights Act of 1964. More specifically, the FTA requires transit service providers to ensure that fare changes do not result in a disparate impact on the basis of race, ethnicity, or national origin, or a disproportionate burden on low-income populations. As an overview, DART provided demographic and fair use data to the Transportation Management and Design Firm, or TMD. We partnered with them, and they used a new fare policy draft to analyze the effects it would have on low-income and minority populations. TMD then determined if the policy would cause any disparate impacts or disproportionate burdens on these populations. More or less, what that means is, are the changes we're going to make going to affect one subgroup of our population more than the overall population? And the conclusions that we reached, so here are three areas that we looked at very closely on the change in policies that had the most potential effect. And the change in policy, so on the left here we have the change in policy, and I'll start with the discontinuation of the downtown fare zone. The analysis found that there would be no disparate impact on minority populations. It found that there would be no disproportionate burden on low-income populations. The next change that we looked at, the replacement of tokens with single-use smart cards, found no disparate impact on minority populations and no disproportionate burden on low-income populations. Finally, we looked at the discontinuation of free transfers for cash-paying riders. We found that there was no disparate impact on minority populations, but we did find that there would be a disproportionate burden on low-income users. Now, I have an asterisk here because the analysis found that with mitigation measures, we can come into full compliance with those Title VI regulations. So what are those mitigating measures? By implementing mitigation measures, DART will ensure full compliance with Title VI regulations by doing some or all of the following. Offer smart cards for free to all riders during a promotional period. This is something that we're planning. Offer smart cards for free on a continual basis for low-income riders who receive transit passes from social service agencies. Introduce a new day pass fare on smart cards. Include bonus trips on smart card stored value, all things that we're planning on doing. Provide a grace period or one ride for riders with insufficient fare so they can reach a pass sales outlet to refill their card. And conduct additional outreach to educate low-income riders about the benefits of a smart card. Next, I'm going to talk about a ridership and revenue analysis. We wanted to make sure that any change that we made in the fare policy was not going to overly negatively or impact the ridership of DART or the revenue that the fares bring in for the agency. The fares are an important part of paying for the operation of DART. So as an overview, DART provided its ridership and revenue data to CH2M Hill, and that firm used the new fare policy draft to develop a modeling tool to forecast ridership and revenue. and they compared the baseline, which is no change, to 4 different scenarios or variations on the fare policy. And I'm going to go through those 4 scenarios now. Scenario A implements most everything that we talked about as part of the new fare policy, including the restrictions of transfers to smart cards and the discontinuation of free transfers for cash paying riders, the transition from calendar passes to the new 7 and 30-day rolling period passes, and the elimination of the downtown loop fare. As you can see, in the orange boxes, we highlight the difference over the baseline. And so as you can see, ridership would be very nominally affected under scenario A with a negative 0.04, and revenue would be nominally affected with an increase of 0.03%. Under scenario B, which is the one that is recommended in the fare policy, we include all of the other changes in the new fare policy, such as the restriction of, including the restriction of transfer to smart cards, the transitions from calendar passes to new 7 and 30-day rolling period passes, the elimination of the downtown loop zone, and then in addition to that, the new fare policy is introducing the bonus trips, which is the ride 10 times and get the 11th one free, and a day pass. And in the next 3 scenarios, the only thing that's going to change is the price of the day pass. So in scenario B, the recommended one, the price of the day pass is set at $4. So as you can see here, ridership is forecast to increase 0.7% under this model, and revenue would decrease by 1.4% under this model, about $60,000. In scenario C, all the changes are the same, and the only difference is the price of the day pass, which is set under this scenario at $4.50. Under this scenario, we see a ridership increase of 0.5% and a revenue decrease of about 1%. Finally, in scenario D, again, all of the things being the same, with the only change being to the price of the day pass, now at $5 under this scenario. Here we see a ridership increase of 0.4% and a revenue decrease of 0.7%. So in conclusion, we found that revenue would be affected very minimally by the fare policy by 1.4%, and that ridership would be affected minimally by the new fare policy at about 0.7%. And it achieves the goals of eliminating paper transfers, transfer cutters, onboard handling, and minimizing fare disputes. It also encourages the use of fare media over cash, and is also eases the use for operators and riders. And to note why scenario B is recommended over some of the others, we chose the lowest price for a day pass to keep it affordable for low-income riders. As you recall, the day pass was one of the mitigation measures that was recommended in the Title VI analysis to make sure that the changes we're proposing are not causing a disproportionate burden on low-income riders. So we felt it very important to keep the day pass at the low range on the price for those users. So finally, I'm going to talk briefly about next steps. So we held a series of public meetings in November 2013. We held a survey at that time and gathered public feedback through that channel. And in the spring of 2014, staff met with several social service agencies in the metro area whose customers and clients rely on DART. And in 2014, we recommended a draft policy to the Commission. And then that's what gave us the go-ahead to do the ridership and revenue analysis, as well as a Title VI analysis. We took it back to the Commission in November 2014 after completing those analyses. And the the Commission gave us an okay to release the draft for public comment in this form. And so now we're holding public meetings in November 2014. In December, we're going to hold a public hearing at the regular Commission meeting, which is noon on Tuesday, December 2nd at Dart Central Station, 620 Cherry Street. And then in January 2015, we'll bring an action item to the Commission, which is basically their final chance to adopt the final policy. And from there, once we have that policy in place, we can continue building out the new fare payment system and have that the new policy will be implemented as the fare boxes are installed in 2015 and 2016. This slide here shows all the different public meeting dates that will be over the course of 2 weeks here. 12 meetings throughout the metro from Altoona, Des Moines, Ankeny, Johnston, West Des Moines, Urbandale, etc. And so I'm not going to read through them all here, but all these dates are listed on the website, and we encourage you to attend one of these if you can. And with that, I would like to thank you for watching this presentation and say that we hope you take the time to complete the survey that is available at ridedart.com. Thank you very much.